Hello, welcome to the Jet Hairdressing Academy long bob haircut. This bob contains disconnection. It's also got a little bit of undercutting. It's a little bit more advanced and aimed towards our level 3 learners and to anyone who's looking for something a little bit more interesting. This long bob or lob trend has been around for a little while now, but it's still proving very popular both in the public and with celebrities, so I thought it was something we'd throw out there, and also adding something a little bit interesting with the undercutting and disconnection. So looking through the shape of this haircut, we've got this disconnected piece through the side, creating this bob line effect through the jawline here. Through the rest, there's disconnected layers through the top, which have created this choppy bob, textured, dishevelled look through the back. And on this side, we've retained a lot of length to keep that more traditional long bob feel. Now, this haircut's got a benefit of the fact this is here. We don't have to show it. You can flick the hair over to the other side, which once you blow dried a block one day, it's quite hard to get it to go the other way. But as you can see, you can also got the option to cover over this hair through the other side if you wanted to. You don't have to do that, but it kind of got two sides to it, this haircut. You can do something that's a bit more daytime, then you can flip it over and do something that's a bit more, evening or going out and have a few more pieces from the other side sort of showing through. You can also leave random pieces out to dangle over this side if you wanted to. It's got lots of options when styling it, so more fierce and slightly more wearable and a bit more daytime. But like I say, not very easy to get it to stay over there when you blow dried it one way of a block. So that's the general feel, and that's what we're aiming for. The haircut's based around a diamond section, which is where the layers are. That's disconnected. There's a baseline through the haircut, and then this disconnected jawline through the underneath. So I'm really like it. I think it's something a little bit more interesting than your standard long bob. With this haircut though, this jawline piece is completely optional. You can completely leave out this haircut pretty easily if you want to. So that's it. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so let's get on with the sectioning now. As you can see, I've already subdivided my head block with a central parting and a radial parting going from ear to ear. This is more to do with making the next section easier rather than the actual haircut. As I've already previously mentioned, we're going to be using a diamond section that's disconnected from the rest. Now, a diamond can be quite a difficult thing to section and to get it balanced through the haircut where you want it. So by splitting the head into 4 in this fashion, it just makes it real easy to make sure you get the positioning of this diamond balanced and equal in size on each side of the head. By releasing 1 quarter at a time, you can mimic the opposite quarter of the head and create this perfect balance of the diamond. Okay, so I'm going to release one of my quarters. I'm going to start in this case with one of my front quarters. So it's important that we have enough hair beneath this diamond to make sure we've got enough hair to make up our baseline and enough hair left for our jawline piece through the underneath that we're going to do at the end. Also, I don't want it too far back, and in this case I'm going to do it about 2 inches from the centre of the forehead, so beginning from about here. Now once I've sectioned this piece of hair, I'm going to lay it across the head and keep that out of the way. With the hair from beneath, I'm actually going to plait to help keep that out of the way. Now you could use a sectioning clip at this point. Personally, I find when you use a sectioning clip, sometimes when you're combing the hair you catch the hair and you pull it out of the sectioning clip and it can get a little bit messy. With a plait, it's in there much more firmly, and that way it just keeps everything cleaner and easier to work with. Don't worry too much, this doesn't have to be the best plait you've ever done. It's not plaiting competition, we're just keeping the hair out of the way here. So get it plaited, get it done. you should find if the hair's wet enough it will just stay in without a clip being added. Okay, I'm going to move on now and section my other quarter at the front, and using the first one as a guide I should be able to get my positioning exactly where it needs to be. Okay now, so using this first one as a guide, I'm going to use that to help me get my balance correct. Looking in the close-up camera now, you can see my initial section here. So now I just need to replicate that going through the head to the same place on the other side here. So another way to help you get the balance correct is to think about how far you're away from the hairline. So if you remember at the front of this, I said I was going to do it about 2 inches back from the centre of the forehead. If you look at the side now through the ear, you can see I'm a similar distance, perhaps a little bit less, up from my ear. So if I keep that piece the same size on the opposite side of the head, then everything should be balanced. Now I'm going to add that piece to the first piece I cut on the other side. Just hold that out of the way, put it across the back of the head. Now I can look and judge how balanced I think this is. I can also look at the side of my head and think about how high I am above the ear in comparison with the original side. And once you're happy with your section, plait it in the same fashion as we did before, just to keep that top separate and help keep everything clean. Okay, now we move on to those back sections. Okay, so now I just need to release one of these back sections and then continue our diamond into the back. Now, depending on how much you want to layer through the back or not layer through the back will depend how big you make this diamond. Now, there's nothing to say it has to be a perfectly symmetrical diamond, so what I mean by that is it could be slightly more kite shaped, so it's got a longer bottom piece, it could have a taller top piece, it could be at right angles like an upturned square effectively. But what is important I think is that both sides of the back are the same and that both sides of the front are the same. So you could carry on a very long slender diamond through this, or it could be a shorter stubbier diamond. So it's just something to play around with the diamond. The further it comes back, the more layered the back's going to be, the more strength you're going to take from your length. The smaller it is, the more tiny and the more softer those layers are going to be through this haircut. So just think about that. I'm going to take mine down to probably an inch above the occipital bone, I think is where I want to be. I want the back to be layered, but I don't want it to be so layered there's no strength in my baseline. Okay, let's take the section. Okay, now I need to repeat that on our very last quarter. And again, plait away this remaining hair. Okay, so hopefully now you can see the diamond. I've just tilted my head back so in the close-up camera you can see we've got the diamond coming from the top down to just above the ears and then joining up underneath the back of the head, approximately an inch or so above the occipital bone and down to the bottom. So that's my diamond section completed, nice and even. Okay, so let's get stuck in and put our baseline in now, this haircut. What I'm going to do is release my back two ponytails, my back two quarters from the underneath, and I'm going to work through that pretty standard really, one length building up some length. If you wanted to graduate it or add some layering to it, you could. I just know that with my particular head block, I don't want to shatter the outside shape too much. There's going to be quite a lot of layering going on from my diamond in the middle, so I want to keep my underneath and my baseline quite solid. So let's do that now. Okay, so I'm just undoing my back two ponytails, just undoing those plaits, and I'm going to section off for a pretty standard one length through here. So I'm not going to say too much about this. If you want to get some tips for your one length, then please go on the app and look at the one length video, and you can learn most of what you need to know on there. But for now I'm just going to go through and put this one length in. So lengthwise, how much you cut off will depend very much on what you want to achieve. Now for me, a long bob or lob needs to sit somewhere between, well, if you think about a normal bob, it's going to finish chin length a bit below, long hair is probably around the top of the chest here, so it needs to fall somewhere in between. So I think if it's touching the shoulders too much, then it's not really ever going to look that much like a long bob. When it swings forward, it needs to, I think, sit just in front of the shoulders, not sitting on them too much and flicking out or anything like that. So about here is where I'm going to aim. So my head block's case, obviously she doesn't have shoulders, but I'm thinking I'm going to take it to about the bottom of the neck of the neck piece of the block, and that's going to, I think, be about right. So I'm going to be working in my block just through the comb. Just cutting a nice square line through the back here. Remember, no tension, no elevation. That'll give you a nice clean line. Make sure you stand in the centre the whole time to keep the balance correct and so we don't round off the corners. As I said, if you want to get more into your one length, then watch my one length video. Don't forget, cross-check, feel a piece from each side and make sure it feels balanced. Okay, once you're happy with the balance, take your next section and carry on. Okay, next section. Once again, don't forget, check your balance. Okay, so this last section, a slightly peculiar shape the pieces you're left with. It's some very small triangular sections, which are a little bit irregular to what you're probably used to, but you've just got to work with them, work from the section above, and just bring the hair down and add it into your length at the back. Just start with your comb in a upward diagonal, and then just as you comb the hair down, rotate your wrist and bring that hair down into the line. So start with your comb pointing upward diagonal. As you bring it down, flatten your comb off to meet your baseline. And as always, don't forget, cross-check for balance. Okay, so we're going to start with one of our side sections now. Once again, just going to undo our plait. Now, depending on what side you're going to do your disconnected jawline piece, really doesn't matter at this stage, because what we'll actually do is cut both sides in first of all, and then resection for our disconnected piece. The reason for this is it can be quite tricky if we were to cut our disconnected piece first and then have to work over the top of it. It can be quite a fiddly thing to work out. It's a bit counterintuitive because you actually end up cutting the same piece of hair twice, once here and then bringing it underneath up. But I think when you work with the disconnection first and that's cut off, obviously then you've got a short piece underneath that can be quite confusing when you come to cut in the longer hair that's going to be over the top. So it's important, I think, to do it afterwards. Now, another thing to think about with your disconnected jawline piece, when we get there of course, is what side you want to put it on. If your client predominantly wears her hair on the right hand side parting from where you stand at the back, and she brings the hair over, is that jawline piece something she wants to see all the time? If it is, then put it on the right. If it's something she only wants to see every now and then when she flicks the hair on the other side, then put it on the left. You need to gauge what kind of client you've got and whether they want their jawline disconnected piece through the underneath to be always visible or just on their occasional side. So you need to think about that, and that's something to talk to your client about. Okay, this section this side. Just going to work with a horizontal section from the bottom point of my diamond horizontal to the front hairline, like that. We're going to bring this down and just use the hair from the back as a guide and work a line going forwards. Now, depending again on what you want to achieve here, you could add a slight drop to this. So by a drop I mean, an angle that goes from the hair at the back here slightly downwards. You could do it completely level, entirely up to you really. I think I'm going to do an ever so slight drop on mine just because I quite like that, and that will marry in with what I'm going to do with this top diamond, because as we've spoken about before, when I'm going to cut the layers in here, they're actually going to gain in length to the front. So I think if the baseline gains in length slightly to the front, that would be a good thing too. Okay, let's cut the section. Okay, so what we're looking for here is the short piece from the back, and I'm going to use that as my guide and cut a line that gains in length just a little bit towards the front and the face. Okay, next section. Again, I'm just going to use another small horizontal section just above here. Just clipping it out of the way, and again, I'm just going to add that to my line at the bottom. It's just gaining in length a little to the front. Okay, next section. Again, as with the back one length sections we were doing, you're working with quite an unusual shape of section at this point. But again, it's just a case of bringing it down, what's left, adding it into the underneath, and popping in that angled baseline. Okay, time for the second side. Okay, so once again, just undo your plaited section. And again, we're going to work with horizontal sections up this piece until we get to the top and run out of hair. And again, so we're going from the very last short piece from the back corner and using that as our guide for our line to drop into the front. Don't forget, before you go too far, it's always worth checking your balance one side to the other. So come around the front of your head, fill your two pieces at the front here and make sure it feels balanced before you move on. Once again, horizontal, inch or so above the previous section. Once again, check the balance. Okay, so check your balance. Once you're happy, we're then going to move on to our disconnected undercut jawline piece. Okay, so we're going to start working on our jawline piece. So what we need to really think about now is just how much hair you want to be in it. I want it to be quite visible on mine, so I'm going to work with a diagonal back section from sort of the lower temple down to just behind the ear. And it's this kind of section where I'm going to pop my line into. If you want it to come further forward or higher up, you can obviously take a little bit more into this, but the higher up you go, the more visible that piece is going to be no matter what you do. I still want to have a little bit of hair to come over the top of mine if she decides to cover it, so I'm going to take a little bit less than that second section I just took there and go back to roughly where I was in the first instance. Just clip everything above out of the way. Clip it to your diamond, that should stay nice and neatly out of the way. And this is going to be my piece where I'll pop my jaw length line in. Okay, so I'm going to subdivide this back diagonal section I've got here now. Just think it's a bit too thick to cut in one. You might find that some people say you can do it in one, but I'm going to do it in a couple of sections just to make sure I get a real sharp, clean line in here. So I'm just going to work also with another back diagonal section just below, about halfway through the middle, the initial one. And again, just going to clip that out of the way, and this will be my first section I'm going to work with, where I'll put my guide. I'm going to cut this section in my fingers. I just feel like for me and my fingers, I've got a little bit more control when I'm working really close to the face like this. It also allows me, when I do my next section, I might just do one finger of elevation in it just to give it a slight beveled shape around the face. Okay, if you're happy with the length you achieved, bring down the rest and do the next section. Now, like I said, I'm just going to put a slight bit of elevation on this just to give it a teeny tiny bit of graduation, which will just give it a nice beveled shape. So what I'm going to do is just bring my fingers, rather than being so flat to the head, I'm just going to bring them a tiny bit out. So if you imagine if there was another finger behind my finger there, that's what I mean by one finger's depth away from the face. There we go, that's my disconnected piece achieved through this side. Now's a good time to look and see how much hair we've got above it. I think I'm happy with the amount of hair I've got here. You can just see that shape breaking through. I think it's a good amount. My model's going to wear her hair on the left, which means we're going to see it really visible anyway. But I think for someone who perhaps wants to cover it, this is a good amount to have from the same side. But don't forget also, when you part this hair, there's going to be some more hair to come over the top, because you'll be bringing over from the right hand side if you're trying to cover it. Okay, so this leaves us with our top diamond now. So what I'm actually going to do is release the diamond, but also isolate the hair from underneath. Now, depending on how much hair you've got left, you could replait this hair to help keep it out of the way. In my case, my hair is a little bit too short to plait now, it won't really hold, so I'm going for clips. And I'm just framing my diamond with a clip on each side of it, just to help keep everything out of the way from the underneath, and you should find that's fine. As long as you've got the hair nice and wet and you're working cleanly, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to maintain the position of this diamond. So through this diamond now, I'm just going to work with vertical sections straight through it. So first of all, I'm going to take a skinny Mohican piece right through the middle of this diamond, and I'm going to cut a line that goes from short to long, which is shorter than this underneath hair, slightly disconnected, gaining in length to the front. Then I'm going to split that down the middle and take sections from the side and bring them into the centre and back, and that's going to achieve length to the front and length to the hairline, but still be disconnected from the rest. Okay, so we'll take this first section now. So just a skinny section straight through the middle of the diamond from the top point to the bottom point. We're then going to over direct this hair backwards and cut a line which is gaining in length to the front. Now how much it gains is up to you, how shorter it is in comparison with your length from below is also up to you. So you can see my length from the underneath here. I'm going to go a bit shorter than what that is, and then cut my line, as I say, just to grow in length as we come out to the front. Now moving forward, just continuing this gain of length as we go. And you can see now the difference between the very last piece that I cut in comparison with the first piece. There's a big difference. And just look at what that's going to do to the shape as it falls in amongst your length you've already cut. If it's not enough, take a bit more off. My advice is always pull it back further than you think first of all, and leave it longer than you think. Have a look, push that layer around now, see what you think it's going to do, and if you're unhappy with it, take some more off. Okay, so once you're happy with your guide, split it down the middle. So essentially we're just chopping our diamond in half, straight down the middle. Okay, now once you've done that, we're just going to take vertical sections parallel to that parting, just moving to the edge of the diamond. So I'm going to go 1, 2, perhaps 3, and then I'm going to pull those sections into the centre and backwards to our guideline that we've just cut. So let me take the first section. So I'm going to pick up this whole left hand side of my diamond so I can see what I'm working with. Then I'm going to take a section to the left of my centre parting. And then with this sectioned off hair, I'm going to bring it into the centre and back to my original guideline. Okay, now to the side of this we're left again with quite peculiar triangle section. I think it's enough hair, just enough hair to add in to what I've already cut. I don't need any more sections here, so I'm going to pick up the remainder of that section. Now if you're struggling to see where you are at this point, just needs a little bit more water. Water's good, it helps keep the hair out of the way. So if you're struggling to see where your centre line is, or what hair you need to have and what hair you don't need to have, a little bit of moisture will help you a great deal. It will just clean up those lines and just make everything a bit more visible as to what should be going on. Now you can see my diamonds become nice and clear again and bring it into the centre. So when I say the centre as well, what I mean by that is that we're not pulling it too far over here, and we're also not pulling it too far towards you over there. It needs to be perfectly in line with the first piece of hair, the piece of hair that comes from the centre parting, I should say. Much like forward inversion, when we've done that haircut before in my other videos, except we're pulling it backwards. So if you're confused about this kind of technique, perhaps look at forward inversion, that should help you. Okay, so we're going to repeat that process on the other side now, just with sections which are parallel onto the right hand side this time of our centre line through the diamond in the middle. So we're just going to move the line over, then over again, and then we'll be finished and ready for blow dry. Same as before, pulling it into the centre, not beyond it. Looking for that guide, which we should have in here now, nice and visible. Bringing the hair backwards, following the guide. First section, now just move the line over to the right again. Add that to all of the hair you've just cut. Again, pull it backwards until you find the guideline. Cut your line, gaining in length towards the front. And then this, again, slightly odd triangular piece, just add that to the rest of the section. And that's it. Diamond cut. Okay, so now you can take out all of your clips. This is the haircut completed now. All we need to do is dry the hair. So I'm just going to comb my hair into the kind of position I want it. Like I said to you before, I want my diamond to be pretty visible. So I'm going to part my hair on the left so we can see it. Probably going to allow a slight bit of hair to hang over my undercut section through that side. But again, this is all optional and dependent on what it is you're trying to achieve with your client's hair. Okay, so I'm going to dry mine now. I've just applied some conditioner and a little bit of mousse to my hair. I'm going to use a Denman brush initially just to give the roots a bit of lift and to generally take a lot of moisture out of the hair, and then I'm going to switch to a round brush just to add a bit of smoothness and bend into the hair. I don't want anything too big and bouncy. I don't think it really suits this look. It's quite a modern cut, so to do it too voluptuous might kind of spoil it. You can just see I've just tried not to have too much of a definite parting. I've just pushed the hair across this way and let the hair that wants to be on this side fall there, and also what wants to be on the other side forward. You can see in my close-up camera, you can just see that line of the disconnected piece breaking through. So I'm just going to lift the roots, push the hair all around the head with the Denman, then smooth with the round. Okay, so that's the blow dry finished. I've been through my Denman and my round brush, got it nice and smooth and tucked under. And you can see the result we've got here. So we've got this effect of quite a shattered layer through the back of the haircut, which gradually gets a bit longer into the front. Now with that, we've got a long sweeping piece across this side, which is quite nice. Now the reason we've got that is because the diamond was sat behind the front. If you remember, there's a perimeter all the way around this haircut that we cut one length. So that's what's meant we can keep this long sweeping piece. Now if you wanted to, you could take a corner out of this and make it a bit more layered around the front there, a bit of sort of sweepy, fringy, but for me that would spoil the look somewhat. I like it being longer on that side. And then through the short piece, if you look in the close-up, you can see we've just got some hair still hung over the top of it, which I quite like. Alternatively now, what we could do is take some this long hair that overhangs it, we could take it down to be the same length as that chin piece, which is what I think I might do. And then don't forget, once she flips his hair over that side, we can actually cover that completely. Now with a head block, it's quite hard to do that. You probably know if you've worked with them, but once you blow dry them one way, they won't fit across the other way very well. But at the end, I'll try and show you some different ways of dressing it out. I'll blow dry it in some different places and show you some different angles. But for now, just quickly, what I want to do is just work on this one little side here. I'm just going to pop her off of the clamp so you can see what we've got going on through the whole thing. So you can see the back is nice and long bob. We've got some layers coming through. We've got this length on the one side, which is pretty standard, and then through our shorter side here we've got our disconnected piece lurking in the underneath, which I think I'm just going to accentuate a little bit now. So I'm just going to use the points of my scissors just to expose this undercut piece a little bit more. Now you don't have to do this, but if you're like me and you like to see these things a bit more, then get stuck in. You're really just making it your own and putting your own mark on it at this point. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong at this point. It's whatever makes it look right to you, and ultimately your customer. If you've got a human being in front of you, it might be wise to get their opinion on it at this point as well. But for me right now, obviously I've just got Dorothy here, and she's pretty open-minded, doesn't mind what I do. Okay, so I'm happy with mine now. You can see I've exposed my short piece on my one quite a lot, so you can see it all the time. But don't forget, obviously, the more of this hair you flip over the back side, if you wanted to, you could start to cover that up quite nicely as well, make it look pretty ordinary. So if you like, you've got your work version and your going out version, perhaps we've got something a bit more going on. Of course, don't forget you can leave that bit out completely. You could do the rest of this haircut and not have the chin piece in. I just wanted to throw it out there as a suggestion to make this a little bit more interesting, especially for you level 3 learners, but you could leave it out. But don't forget, it's not that scary, because all someone has to do is flip their hair over the other side. Like I said, this block won't want to do it right now because I've blow dried it the other way, but you can see in the close up here, by dressing it out to the other side, you'd be surprised how much of that gets covered up through the other side, and then it starts to look like a standard long bob or lob. And then, like I say, a bit of layering going on through the front, getting longer. A bit of layering going through the back rather, getting longer to the front. So thanks. I'll show you some other ways of dressing this out now at the end, but that's it. Thanks a lot.